Yeah, I think so.
There's more traffic there. Okay, so it should be on my page now. If it's not, just refresh it. It'll be there.
Yeah, I'm just going to share it to my page real quick. So
right on. I tagged you on it. Let's see what. Okay. Hey, I think they're going to let us play our intro. They finally got the interface work. What's up, Delia Flores? What's happening? We need to talk this weekend. We have some things going on. It looks like the interface is fixed. Let's see. If it is, we're going to play the intro, which we haven't played in 10 days. And allow people time to come in. We got a new friend in the house. All right, let's see what happens.
Oh, we're live, huh?
Yeah, we're live. Hang on. Here we go.
Awesome.
We'll be right back. Sorry. We'll be back in a minute, 19 seconds. Ashley Lee's in the house. Richie Sauter. Healing peace and comfort to your dad. What's happening, everybody? Let me get my shiitake mushrooms together. We got a new friend in the house, and he looks pretty cool because we saw a video of him the other day. Morgan said, "Look at this guy," and we watched it. And then I went to his page, and I think it's a good idea to speak your mind, even if you don't know what the hell you're talking about, and that's including me.
Yeah.
I just think we're in this phase now where, it's kind of like, okay, you're in the home stretch. You're not going to get this chance again. You never get a chance to do it a second time the first time, right? And just let it hang out. And, if your heart's in it, let it fly, So I really have a lot of respect for that. This is Jeff Walsh, beautiful, beloved, brave brother. And we're going to sit down on a special edition Saturday. Todd just got out of bed, and I drank 3 sips of coffee, and I'll be okay in another 4 or 5. But a special edition of Soul Speaks 5D. Welcome, my brother, to the show. And, we just try to keep it spontaneous, creative, intuitive, imaginative, and depending on what we're talking about or doing, courageous, and just break bread and see what's happening in front of our brothers and sisters. Right on. So, welcome. Thank you for coming in and honoring us with your presence.
Yeah, man. Thank you. What an amazing presence you have. So much wisdom. Just I can feel it. Like this quantum entanglement moment that we're having right now. It's amazing, man. So I truly, truly am honored. And don't hold any of those videos against me, okay?
Dude, I got over 4,500 in the till there. There's plenty of them you go back and see. No, haven't shaved in a few days, no shirt on, hair's all wild, hungover, talking about buildings crashing down by invisible planes. And so you got nothing to worry about.
that sounds like my awakening, my 2017, it was, man, I had this, this experience, this like Kundalini experience, or the baptism of the Holy Spirit, right? Whatever we want to call it. And man, if you would have seen me during those times, my hair's all over the place. Right?
Yeah, mine was black too. Was yours black back there? Mine was.
Oh man, mine's almost gone. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Can I borrow some of that?
Mine's coming out, man. Morgan's like, your hair's getting thin. You need to like fluff it out. I'm like, what? My hair is not getting thin, but it is. Yeah, I keep telling her it's from the ponytail pulling my hair out, but she says no.
I got the gray. No.
I got some there too. I had it since everybody grew this. So, no, but this is a good point. You know, it doesn't matter on the linear timeline. That's what I love about this show, because like somebody comes on the show and they're like, oh, you know what happened to me in 2016, 2017? I went through this period. Well, it's happening to people now. It was happening to people 10 years ago. So there's a lot of value to having a discussion about what the hell's going on. You know, that's why I always ask people when they first come on, when did you wake up, or were you always this weird?
It's a great question, and I agree. And I think that's why I'm speaking so boldly now, because I understand so many people are going through things that I went through. And, I kind of felt alone on that sometimes. And I want people to realize they're not alone. My spiritual journey's been quite interesting. It started over 20 years ago when I had a spiritual experience. I'll just give you the quick thing. I had a spiritual experience after a night of MDMA in a club in New York City. I had this overwhelming experience of a presence, and it was so euphoric and so powerful, and it literally changed who I was in a moment. It was the beginning of the shift, right? And I was 20 years old. I was doing cocaine, and I was just living the crazy life, came from trauma and brokenness and all that. And but my mom and my sister were born again Christians. So I automatically took my experience and went head into evangelical Christianity.
Yeah.
And beautiful, beautiful. I mean, it was beneficial and beautiful in so many ways, that experience. I was kind of jumped head into evangelical Christianity, but as the years went on, I struggled with it. I struggled with some things within it, and it created a lot of inner torment, if you will. I always thought I was like trying to please this tyrant God, and and it was difficult because it for me it was about understanding an unconditional love. That I didn't really fully grasp because I was taught. But then, in 2000, I went through addiction. In 2012, I was doing really well in corporate America, and married, wife, 2 kids, all of that. Still inner struggles. Went through that divorce and turned to meth addiction, heroin addiction. Yeah.
Those 2 are the toughest. I've never been addicted to either one, but I've done both. And, anyone knows my past, I've done everything, but that's a big one to come back from, dude. I mean, that's, and, people don't, when I woke up, I was on the streets for 2 years, and, man, you talk about an eye opener. And I was in corporate America. I was just a very similar story to you, but man, you don't know the heroes out there. You don't know the heroes in AA groups or NA groups or on the street that are still addicted. We're talking about some very powerful souls that just don't happen to be typical of, the conventional norm. But man, they're not stupid. And
I'm so glad you said that too.
It's the truth. They're angels. I met living angels on the street, 6 a.m. in the morning at the bus stop. Meth addict, up all night long, and I'm going to work. And it was those 2 years were the most important in my life. But I have to say, a big part of it was meeting people on the street and being able to talk to these people in all situations, and seeing the light. And seeing that and being able to do that. I'm not trying to say I'm like Jesus or anything, but because it's not like, oh, okay, I'm just going to walk on water. But it was like you meet these people and you start to see the patterns in your head of superiority, inferiority, and separation.
Yes.
Right. And then you also, when you're in that world, and I know you can relate to this, you start to see yourself as inferior. Right. That's a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah, give me another fix, and and I'll deal with it when I wake up tomorrow. which could be like 2 or 3 days.
For me, you know, it would literally be 4, 5, 6 days. People don't understand. Like, I would stay up, no exaggeration, 5 days straight without an ounce of sleep. And then I would crash because my body just couldn't take it. And you're talking about psychosis and delusions. And yet there's so much truth in it's all mixed together. And what I've learned as, you know, the last time I put a needle in my arm was June 7th of 2015, right before I went to prison for the final time. And, you know, so dissecting all of that trauma in my being and all of that has been quite the journey. But you said something so profound, and I really want to hit on this because I think it's true. I believe that there are more spiritually powerful and gifted people in addiction and on the streets than we understand. See, we've created a stigma that just because someone's doing something that we don't see as healthy, that they're somehow not powerful or this or that. I think some of the most powerful spiritual people, truly, or prophetic, if you want to say, or whatever you want to call it, are going through those struggles. And and we, you know, we have to kind of pull that stigma away.
I totally agree with you. I'm not advocating anything. I just
definitely not.
But I will tell you, you know, I had 2 Kundalini experiences in my mid-20s, and it scared the hell out of me. I shut it down totally. I was like, I'm not going there again, you know. But so, you know, my thing happened to me. I was 49, you know, like 49 and a half, and about 2 months before it happened, I took some ecstasy, which is, you know, the base ingredients, MDMA, same thing you're talking about. And I had a Kundalini. I was in a club, and I was like, excuse me. And I left the group I was with. I went and sat in a bar chair. My head blew off, but it had happened before. So I knew it. I knew what it was, kind of. I wouldn't really get into it for 2-3 months later. So all I'm trying to say is, and I have friends. I've got one friend that was a meth addict for 18 years. And this person absolutely broke through to the other side during these bouts that they would have, you know, these binges while they were in solitude in their own house. Okay.
Yeah.
And so it's not, you know, and I agree with you. I think addiction is kind of in the same category as mental illness. And these people, it's nothing you learn on the street. And you probably learned in prison when you're incarcerated. You know, I haven't gone to prison. I was in county jail during this time for 34 days and a couple other times for a few days. And the thing is, you see a lot of light in those places. Absolutely. You know, I went to the high security because of what I was charged with. So I was in with these people that were in the Harris County Jail, but they were the ones that were in the longest. So these like 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. And you see some amazing demonstrations of the light. And the other thing I want to say about the lifestyle that you and I both used to have is that it's absolute proof that you can lose your fucking mind and still find the light. Yes. At the same time, right?
Yes.
At the same time, you can be running with the devil and as long as you're going, I'm going there. I'm with the light, and it's crazy. I wouldn't wish it on anybody, but
no, it's not an easy path. That's for sure. It's interesting. I was looking in the mirror as I was brushing my teeth today, and I was literally telling myself as I was looking at myself brushing my teeth, how strong and courageous and loving and kind and generous that even when I was on the streets, like even if I only had 50, and I don't say this to boast, I was basically homeless living on the streets, and I gave the homeless person the shoes on my feet. Like that's the type of people that we are. You know what I mean? That's the core of who we are. And I think that, you know, when we walk past that person that's homeless, or we think these things, listen, let's shift that thought and look at them as a person that is a father, a son, you know, and you know, give them $20. Don't that whole mindset of, well, I don't know what they're gonna do. Who cares? You're gonna help them in that moment. You know what I mean? Like, just even a cup of coffee or lunch or whatever. And I'm, so, I'm passionate about.
Yeah, it goes a long way.
It does.
I met a guy, for instance, I had to go to rehab, court-ordered rehab for 90 days, in-house, right? In-house, where you can't leave unless you go to work if you earn it. And this dude I bunked with, he was probably my age, right? He was around 50 at the time. And he looked pretty, like rode hard and put up wet. But nobody liked him because he smelled and because he just looked disheveled, right? So I started talking to him. You never know. And he was this was in Houston. And I'd been living there for, off and on for 20 years. So I knew the area really well. He was from probably the second richest neighborhood in Houston. We're talking old money, right?
Wow.
Just move in and, it's old money, old oil and gas money. So the story was that he was from a very wealthy family. Now he's living in the second richest neighborhood in Houston. He gets married. He's married 11 years and his wife dies. And this dude literally walked out of the house in the second richest neighborhood in Houston. Father's doing great. He doesn't got anything to worry about, and literally walks out of the house and goes homeless.
Yeah.
For 10 years.
Yeah.
And so the story goes that 10 years later, he's walking down the street one night and this lady pulls up in a Mercedes and has the same type of, intention that you're talking about and says, let me take you home and let me feed you and give you a bath. So he does. And he didn't leave for 10 years, And then she dies. And what does he do? Goes right back on the street. You never know the story behind what got him there. You have no idea. And like I was saying about mental illness, these people with mental illness, they have a window into the other side, the other side of the veil.
Mm-hmm.
And that's incredible. The indigenous used to, if somebody, what we call mentally afflicted, they would create space for them. Like they would have their own area. They honored them. They revered them. And they looked at them for advice when it came to issues of, of the non-physical. But they didn't treat them like, the bastard children. So yeah, there's a lot of wisdom on the streets, but it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
So how did you, so now did you get out of prison the last time, then the wake up, or was the wake up? I guess it would have been because you were hitting the MDMA. So yeah. Were you even like thinking about this stuff, or did it just happen?
No, so I was seeking the things of God. I was, I still hold on to, my understanding. I consider myself like a mystic now, right? Like I understand, like, to me, it's all about the Spirit of God within, the Christ within. And I was seeking the things of God. And my prayer was, God grant, St. Paul wrote it, God grant me the spirit of wisdom and revelation in the knowledge of who you are, that the eye of my heart be flooded with light. Well, one day I'm walking and I'm just praying, and all of a sudden this energy starts surging.
Yeah.
My belly starts to quiver.
Yeah.
And the energy just surged, and literally my brows and my cheeks and my crown and my pineal gland just were vibrating and pulsating. And I literally feel like if I would have pointed my hand at somebody and like I would have knocked them over, that's how much power was coming out of my hands. And it brought the most euphoric. I mean, I've done every drug you could probably do. Never felt anything like this before in my life. It brought the most euphoric and scary feeling. And it happened to me about 3 or 4 times in a 2-year period. Wow. And what's wild is that it brought a lot of delusion as well. Yeah. It brought it was literally, I think what I like to say is it was all of the belief systems that were not healthy that were residing within me began to manifest, if you will, in almost like delusion, because it was the shedding of it. You know, it was the healing of it. It was letting go of those egoic kind of structures that were limiting me in my own ascension or my own growth, if you will.
Dude, I totally relate to you. We're, you know, they have that same brother of another mother. I think we're from the same mother, man. I don't know. No,
well, I totally do your energy.
Yeah, I totally relate to you though, because that, you know, when that, number one, I've talked to, well, and not that it hasn't happened, but when I've talked to people over the years on the show, very few times do they say the Kundalini scared the hell out of me. Right? Like they might go, it freaked me out or something. But I remember when it happened to me, I told you twice in my 20s. And the second time I was like, no, I don't want any more of this. Right.
Yeah.
So that, and also like what you're saying about this, the delusion, this is what I'm talking about in terms of what we call mental illness. You know, 5,000 to 6,000 years, we still can't get our arms around it. Right. You know, they have like, I think, you know, 10 or 12 behavioral disorders, you know, like borderline personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, and so on. They've got all these labels.
Right.
And but it's the same thing. When you're in that state, and everybody listening pretty much to the last person can remember this. You wake up, you start telling your family everything. Everyone thinks you're crazy. Nobody's listening to you. Right? Did you go through that? They're like, hey man, snap to it. I mean, were they telling you that, you know, you needed to go to the doctor?
You know, yeah, so I haven't really shared, you know, I'm just starting to speak about some of the things I went through, you know, because what happened is I was so channeled into this funnel of consciousness, right?
Yeah.
And it brought a lot of grandiose, you know, it brought a lot of things that I still don't fully understand. It was literally like I was plugged into things, and I could, like, I had so many ideologies and this and that just like coming at me. And so but what people do think is that I'm, you know, because I've turned away from fundamental Christianity. What this brought was an awakening to the damage of religion in my own life. I'm a heavy believer in God within me and God and all that. And I haven't turned away from that understanding of that Christ within. But what I've been shown is that, you know, there's things that maybe aren't as that we've been taught. Yeah. And so coming from a Christian world, you know, a lot of people think I'm a heretic or because I'm also an ordained pastor. Not that I operate in that, but that's kind of, you know,
you're just like me. You're a heathen.
Yeah. You know, I'm wearing a shirt with a mushroom on it.
But who makes the best preacher? The heathen.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know, I wonder about this too, because I can relate. Now, I wasn't ordained, and I wasn't even a practicing, you know, I've been studying for 25 years, you know, like philosophies, different religions. I'd read about everything. So mine was just more of like taking this information, but the connections there, right? And but because and I wonder about this because of my upbringing. Because when I woke up, I had an experience at 1:11 in the morning with the face of Jesus appearing in the trees and behind my house and talking to me.
Yeah.
Right. Now, at that time, I said to myself, that's not the Jesus from the Bible. Like, right. I somehow knew that. But at the same time, all of my reference points were biblical. Right. So the next thing that happens is Jesus walks in the doors, talks to me, Mary Magdalene, and then 6 biblical prophets over a period of like 2 months. They sit down with me for like 2. But what I'm getting at is, I think what happens is the universe speaks to us, or we speak to ourselves, however that works. The universe speaks to us in a way that we can relate.
Yes.
And then what happens is, and I've seen this happen all over the lightworker community, and it's understandable because we still are working our way out of the human only thing and the ego thing. But what happens is we get overly attached to the story.
Yes.
So I'm talking to, you know, Abraham and Isaiah and Noah, and they're telling me things I didn't know. And I go look it up on the internet and I'm like, wow, that's true. He did have 7 sons, you know? And so and like you said, you're like going, wow, I must be, you know, something hot.
Right.
But that part of it, I think once you get past the wow, then you can really start to, and you relax a little bit and you're like, okay, well, I'm still human. Don't take yourself too seriously. Cause I don't know about you, but anytime I got a little cocky, I ended up with I got my ass kicked and I was, face first on the pavement. I don't know about you. How did it go for you?
Yeah. I mean, 29 months in prison and putting a needle in my arm, you know what I mean? So yeah, it's, and you hit it on the head. That's what's so amazing about love. And that's what I'm trying to grow in, letting go of judgment of things, but because that's what love does. Love meets us in our beliefs. Love meets us in our understanding, in our awareness. And that's the beauty of it all, really. Ultimately, it's like, because if I believe one thing, love can show me how love looks in that thing, right? In that belief structure. And but I think you're also 100% right. And I agree. And I think one of the things that I struggled with, not so much, I'm letting go of a lot of it, but that attachment to that experience as a fact of ideology. So meaning like, just because I experience a euphoric moment does not mean that is like the truth of all things. It just means that love revealed itself to me. And so when my big thing is that I have to be willing today to face that what I believed yesterday may no longer be true.
Thank you. This is worth the whole hour and a half, how long we're here. That's absolutely right.
And that's the power of transformation. That's the power of healing, because my ego has to be in check so much that I'm willing to say, you know what? That doesn't fit.
I don't know shit.
Right. Right.
What did Socrates say? I don't know shit.
Nothing. I don't know.
Yeah. I've always felt that, I spent, like I said, the first 2 years walking the streets purposely every day. All I did was walk, it was like a survival thing. Plus it was also a connection thing. And, I figured out real quick that if I thought I was humble, I had more humble pie to eat. And I had a great teacher in the universe, right? But one of the things that really helped me a lot was to know, and part of it was because of the lifestyle. So I'm waking up, having these divine episodes, and I'm hitting the bar every single night, full blown, balls out. And so when you know this, so when you're in that environment, especially if you're doing things to the degree that we did, all right, anything could happen. So you wake up the next morning going, oh my God.
Oh no.
I hope no one ever finds out what I just did. Right. Like the self-deprecation, the self-destruction, right? The self-sabotage, the self-loathing. You know what I'm talking about. And this is why addiction, because like you said, you can find love everywhere. You can even find it putting a needle in your arm, right? In fact, it's everywhere. So you just, you know what I mean? But my point is, that's why it's so strong, because you went to this place and you're like, I don't want to go back there. I mean, I'm just a piece of crap, and then it's so much easier just to, I'll deal with it tomorrow. Let me get another fix. But what you said about the waking up, that's one thing those nights taught me, is because when I'd wake up, I'd be like, oh shit, again. And it allowed me to go through a process of self-acceptance, self-forgiveness, and I guess integration, balance, whatever goes with that, courage to get up and give it another shot after an 11-day losing streak. Right? You know what I'm talking about? But to be able to get up and say, hey, I saw a 12-foot angel last night. We had a conversation, or, Abraham came in and sat down with me. he told me a bunch of stuff I went on the internet and it was true. Like I must be something special, but to wake up every day and say, I don't know shit. I really don't. That to me is the best barometer of how am I doing?
Yeah, bro. Yeah, it's interesting too because Paul wrote something similar. St. Paul wrote that he went. He doesn't know if he left his body, and I'm paraphrasing the scripture, but he said, I don't know if I left my body or if I went somewhere, but I went somewhere and I was shown things that I can't even speak of.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that is, there are things that some of us go through in life that doesn't need to equate to are better than, or, no one's higher than. It's just this, to me, my big word, and you said it, is balance.
Yeah.
Balance in my life now is I'd rather just be happy and like chilling than need to know the spiritual truths of 10,000 years ago. You know what I mean? Like it just doesn't matter to me anymore. To me, it's about how can I be the best person today? How can I be the best father today? Well, first, how can I love me the most today? Because that's still a work in progress. Then how can I be the best father? And then whatever else life looks like in that day, how can I be the best person I am today? And sometimes I don't get it right. You know what I mean? And that's okay. And that's okay. And for me, and I've had spiritual experiences that if we talked about, and I know you would relate, we could talk about these experiences for days.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's really ultimately about inner healing.
Yeah.
Loving myself, because I didn't love myself for a long time.
I don't think any of us did. Let's not, I don't think any of us did, but you bring up a great point because, you in that lifestyle, there's so much shit. I mean, you go to a trap house, or you go to a party house, or you see so much stuff that's not okay. But it's not like you don't see it if you walk outside. I've been watching these series just for whatever reason, not because of the actual literal content, but about the history of like the mafia. And so I'm watching these big biographical features on these people. And I don't know why I'm watching it, but I'm picking up the code and I'm figuring it out. And part of what I'm figuring out is you might have this mobster in Chicago or New York who was meeting out an existence for his family and his culture and his, and all that stuff. And he's being chased by these establishment players who really are they're in the same boat. One of them's designated a bad guy, but the other side, traffics cocaine, traffics prostitution, it's fraudulent in terms of money, and it's just the same thing. But you're looking at it through a different lens, and you're also looking at it through the eyes through the conditioned eyes of, let's just say, the Matrix. When you can start to look at everything the same, then you start to make progress. But it's not an easy trip because I don't know about you, but because of the stigma of the past, everybody looks, well, I say everybody, the people that are in your world that knew you are looking at you like you're good for nothing. You know what I mean? So that's a hard thing to overcome, I think. That's like one of the first things is to say, you know what, F it. I know who I am and the universe knows who I am, and I'm going to keep moving forward. Does that relate? Can you relate to that?
I do. I do. And it's not easy sometimes. It's, there's times sometimes because I feel like I'm bucking systems, if you will, like ideologies. And sometimes I have to like really align and balance myself with the perspective of like even recognizing that I'm just doing me, right?
Yeah.
I'm just being me. And you bring up a valid point. I mean, it's like when I was getting pills from doctors, I'd go to a doctor office.
Yeah.
and they take my $250 and they write me a script knowing there's nothing wrong with me. I'm there to give them cash, and they're there to write me a script. And I can tell you 5 doctors in the county of San Diego that did this for me. You know what I mean? And yet we are putting drug dealers in prison.
That's right, man.
And I mean, you know, I'm not saying doctors don't go. I'm not saying I was in federal prison, so I saw some doctors, but on a scale. I mean, we have an opiate crisis in this nation that, you know, listen, those are being prescribed.
Yeah. Well, look at and that's heroin. And look at Adderall.
Yeah.
Adderall. I mean, dude, don't give me any Adderall. You know, because you know, I'll sit here and tell you straight up that you know, I'm done whatever I've done in my life and overcome whatever. But if I ingest you know, methamphetamine and either ecstasy or straight MDMA or whatever the case is, I'm not able to be in control. Someone else is driving the car, right? And but yet I could go down to the doctor. I could say I can't concentrate. I'm 59 years old and I'm trying to be a broadcaster and I can't, you know, concentrate. And they'd say, okay, I'll give you a prescription for 130 milligram Adderalls.
Yeah.
Right. You know, I mean, so you're right.
And you know, and you as you say that, I'm reminded too, is listen, I'm also responsible for that, right? I take accountability. I take full accountability of my own part in all of that. You know, I'm not victimized. I'm not blaming. You know, I'm not saying that I was a victim, because I was the one, you know, that was also, it's like a relationship, right? I was playing the other 50% of that, and I'm fully aware of that. You know, it's just, as someone that served 29 months in prison, you know, I've learned a lot of things that I would have never learned. When I was 34 years old, you know, 33 years old, I was playing golf 3-4 times a week, and I was flying on planes in corporate America. And I remember a conversation with my then brother-in-law, and we were talking about people in prison, and my mindset was they belong there. Yeah. Everyone that's in prison belongs there. And you know, it's not true. It's not true. So that's where that passion comes from. Listen, I'm not blaming the doctors. Listen, people need Adderall, people need Vyvanse, I guess, right? So like, you know, I guess they have to prescribe it. So there's this balance, but I really just feel like, you know, the entire drug world and understanding.
Yeah. I mean, it's the whole thing though. See, and then for you or me to wake up in that atmosphere, you know, first of all, the first rule, okay, and when you're incarcerated, you know this, is there's the old joke, everybody's innocent. Hey, what'd you do? Nothing, man. I didn't do nothing, man. Now, let me first say, you know, we're talking about 25%. Is this how it goes? No, 5% of the world's population, 25% of its incarcerated prisoners.
Yeah, so America has 5% of America has 5% of the, and we have 25% of the incarcerated.
5% of the world's population, 25% of its prisoners. So I don't need to be a rocket science. You can't fucking tell me that if the whole, that, you know, it's kind of like that thing, everybody's wrong and I'm right, you know? Right. So I'm not knocking American. I'm just trying to make a point. There's something severely wrong, not slightly, but severely wrong. So there's no way that you can have everyone in prison or in county jail that's guilty. There's no way.
Privatized prison. We trade it on Wall Street. Yeah. We privatized prison and we traded on Wall Street. It is the same thing now. Profits. Now it's about profits. So guess what? If people aren't in those beds, profits are down. So listen, this is a serious issue. This is, you know, I met most people that I met in prison. I don't know the statistics, but I would say that 80 to 90% of the people there did not commit a violent crime.
I agree.
You know,
I agree with that.
maybe it's 80%, whatever it is. It's a high percentage that people did not commit violent crimes. They're there for drug offenses. They're there for, petty crime. I mean,
but what happened to me, I walked the streets for 7 or 8 months. And then I got into a little whatever. And so I went into the Harris County Jail for 34 days. At this point, I was getting to the stage of basically the universe came in and said, hey, it doesn't matter if it's a circumstance or a consequence. You're like in deep doo-doo, all right? It doesn't matter if it's a circumstance or a consequence. It's all the same thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how you got here. What matters is where you're at and where you're going.
Yeah.
Which was basically the universe's way of saying, this is all your creation, pal.
I know.
Now, to me, that was the biggest hurdle to get over. And I'd like to hear, like, from you, did you have that come to Jesus meeting where the universe said, get off the pity pot, man?
Yeah.
This is all your deal.
Yeah.
And it's up to you. When I was in the Harris County for the 34 days is when I really got that, because I started to see all these other stories. And I don't know the percentages either, but like in that case, I would say 1/3, there's 25 men in this cell, right? 10 were there because they had a previous record, and a woman, their wife, their girlfriend called the police and said they were trying to hurt them.
Yeah.
Now, was it true every time? I don't know. But all I'm trying to say is I'm with you. These people were dealing with an inequality, and they were paying the price. So I saw grown men that were there for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, who overcame the blame game. And it taught me a lot.
It's a scary thing to think about the reality that, so I was in an isolation cell within prison. And it's really scary. I shouldn't use the word scary because I've grown through it. But when you look at, as you grow in your understanding and you look at the reality of that was a reflection of my brain.
Yeah.
It was a reflection of my own brokenness.
Yeah.
I was trapped in a 10 by 10 cell within my own mind. Right. And so it was manifesting in the world. Right. And that's a scary place to be, but I'm so grateful for being free. But in the same retrospect and understanding that where I'm at now, I take accountability for what I created. But I also, how do I, and this is a question for you, how do we balance? Because recidivism, I did more time for violations of my probation than I did for my original sentence.
Yeah.
I did 19 months for probation violations. I was sentenced originally to 13 months. So I did almost a time and a half more in violations without being convicted of another crime. Yeah. So how do we balance, like, understanding that people are creating that in their life, you know what I mean? And yet bringing equality, so I think, and so in the spiritual community, I think we have to be like balance that reality, right? Like, and I don't know, that's a question for you. Like, how do we also talk about equality and transformation?
Man, that's,
as if that it's being created in some ways,
Well, I think what's starting to happen in these communities is okay, so all the sacred books, right? Go within, go within, go within.
Yeah.
And some of these simple, profound truths, they sound like a cliche. And just because you say something or read something doesn't mean you know it. You know what I mean? Like, I know you know this. When you experience it, it's a totally different deal. Right. Like when you experience being homeless, or you experience being an addict, or you experience making decisions because you've been using, so it affects your money, it affects your family. It's a pretty effed up deal, right? But when you start to practice as within, without, as below, above, whatever, there's more and more traction on the school of thought that it really is crazy, but it's true. If I change this, everything around me starts to change. Like begets like.
Yeah.
That's why you see a lot of these stories of people, waking up and the relationship's over, man. Or they wake up and they quit their job, or they sell their house, or they go live off the grid, or there's it's I don't know. To me, all the external stuff is nothing but a distraction.
Yeah.
Right. Even my relationship with Morgan, it's not a distraction. But but I can make it that. I can make it an end run in terms of the real deal, right? I can look at something and go, oh, what's going on with her? That's going on for me. Yeah. Whatever's being shown to me, right? And it just happens to be coming from, let's say, from her or from a family member or from a friend. But yeah, I think to your question, like it or not, let go or be dragged. Just it's about me. Yeah. It's never about them. It's always about me. And I think that's a hard pill to swallow because we have so many layers, right? Yeah. I mean, it's what are you eating and what are you smoking and who are you talking to and what do you do for a living and how much money do you have in your bank? There's just judgment. It's just layer and ripping us down. But there's a lot of people like yourself that are expanding on an individual level, and I believe that's the greatest contribution we can make.
I love that. It's amazing too, because the more I grow and the more I heal, the more I realize that is all it's about. Mm-hmm. It's about Jeff becoming a victor versus a victim. Yeah. It's about Jeff realizing that all things work together for his good. It's about Jeff realizing that everything is as it should be, and gratitude is my appreciation. And I see now, as I live from that place, I'm having an impact vibrationally and energetically on my children, my relationship with my children. And to me, that is ultimately, that's where it starts. And if I have the ability to impact other people's lives with my heart and with my work and with my own truth, and it resonates with people, amazing. I've actually had to start really believing that I do make a difference for people. And I think that it's truly because I've learned and I'm learning to heal myself. Yeah. The more I heal myself, the more I become kind of a healer of that which I healed within myself. Yeah. And so I vibrate a frequency that will allow people that come into my circle or into my experience, the quantum entanglement. And as a healer, and I think this is really, really important because I do consider myself an intuitive healer, if you will, but I think it's really important that we understand that we are simply a spark of divinity or a catalyst for someone to go within and realize their own divine healing spirit, the spirit of within them. I am not healing anybody. I'm only a catalyst, a spark for that person to go within and unlock their own divinity within them. And I think that's really important because that keeps people from needing to come back to me over and over. Listen, I can't keep, if you don't grasp it, right, you shouldn't keep coming back to me. And I think that as the kind of work that I'm doing is really important to me, or facilitating community, you know what I mean, to create that because it's all about inner awareness, it's all about inner healing, it's all about inner awakening, if you will.
Yeah, I remember what you were talking about. I remember in that time on the street, because all the information comes in right away, doesn't it? It's just like it's all there. Like every day you're getting, go within, and and it's never them, it's always me, but it doesn't stick, right? So you have to kind of work through. But I remember when everything went down for me, everything flipped literally overnight, and so I had 4 kids in the house, and my wife at the time, and I was just hanging on by my fingernails, right? Financially, physically, mentally, emotionally. but spiritually, I was, like I said, you can lose your mind and find the light at the same time. But when I hit the street, of course, my thoughts, you're a father. My thoughts were like, what are my kids going to think? I need to help them, da 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 da. And I remember distinctly hearing, the best thing you can do is get yourself in the best possible shape spiritually, because it will directly affect your mental, your emotional, and physical, and energetically. Now, this is long before I met Morgan Lee and I heard these terms about working with energy, right? This was, again, we're a conduit. It wasn't me, oh, I'm so smart. It wasn't that. Infinite intelligence gave me the gift of this knowledge.
Yes.
Then start to embody it. And basically said to me, this is the best thing you can do. Even if they don't know it consciously, even if they don't talk to you for years, your energy will affect them. Yes. And then I meet Morgan Lee 5 years later, and she's an energy practitioner. I'm like, what the hell is that? You work with your DNA. What is that? Right. She explained to me that when you heal, you're actually healing generations forward and backward.
Yes.
Right. And I thought, yeah, that's what that was. they told me that, but I just
goosebumps right now so intensely. I know, like, it's just, yeah. That's what it's all about, bro. That's, it's healing. It's healing for my future, and it's healing for the past, and it's healing both those realms by living in the present now.
Yeah, that's right.
That's
right.
And that's the magic.
That's another thing about the streets and about being incarcerated. You want to know how to live in the present? Go do that. Like, that's amazing. Like when you're in, I wasn't in the system like you were, but 34 days in the highest risk category in Houston was not a great place to be. But eating, resting, having a conversation. I mean, these little things, when you can't go outside these walls, you know what I mean? When you have to collaborate in cohabitation with others.
Yeah.
Right. You have to stay within this box. I mean, there's, what I called it? The universal isolation.
I'm going to tell you a quick story. So when I got out of prison, the first time I went to prison, I was in prison for roughly, with county jail and everything, it was almost 2 years locked up, whether it was in county, in prison, altogether, about almost 2 years. And when I got out, the feeling of walking so I went to Denver to catch a bus because the prison was in Denver. And I'll never forget the feeling of life and energy surging around me, because I was so isolated in a white wall box, right? And no access to the energy of the world, if you will, right? Other than the divine energy with me. But you walk out and it's like, holy shit.
Yeah.
You start feeling everything again, especially as someone as empathic as I am and intuitive as I am. And it's incredible because I can't even imagine some of these people that are locked up for 20 years.
Oh, man.
What they must feel energetically when they walk out of those.
They talk about it, right? They call it the free world, right?
Yeah, free world.
And like I was in a 25-man cell. It was kind of an L shape, and there was one window about as big as this laptop screen.
Right.
And you would have thought that it was the fucking Holy Grail. I mean, it was like somebody was in front of that window all day long, right?
Yeah.
And then I think of two is, did you see that movie Interstellar? Did you see that movie?
I didn't, but Todd, listen, I hate to do this, but I drink a lot of water. I've got to take a 1 minute bathroom break.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Second.
I was thinking about that movie Interstellar, where they they go to that planet, and Matt Damon's on the planet, and they get him out of the whatever that is, the sleeping chamber. And when he comes out, he just starts crying and bawling because he hadn't seen anybody. He had no human contact. And I think that's another thing that he's talking about. Pretty cool dude, right? Do I ever chat with my viewers? Do we ever chat? Yes, we do. What do you mean by that? One thing we do get too is we get all the comments from all the different platforms on the screen here. You can't really see it. Who am I talking to? I'm talking to everybody.
God, sorry, bud.
That's all right. Somebody's like, who are you talking to? No, I was telling about that. There's a scene in Interstellar where Matthew McConaughey and the other people in the movie, they go to this planet because they're trying to like find these astronauts that went through a wormhole or whatever. And Matt Damon's there, and he's been living on this planet by himself, right?
Oh,
So he's in a sleeping chamber, cryonics, he's frozen, and so they go to wake him up. And this is what you reminded me of. And when he comes to, he just starts bawling like a baby. He just, I don't even know what he says, but just the energy of it's like, wow, to touch another human being, that's what I'm saying about that situation. And even on the streets, because the old saying, you can be alone standing in a room or living in a house with 10 people. You can be lonely. You can be alone. You can be isolated. And you see a lot of that. You see a lot of that on the streets. You see a lot of people that think that that's all they got.
Yeah. It's interesting too, because the streets, I really do believe that I ran into homeless angels, by the way.
Absolutely.
No doubt about it. As a matter of fact, right before I started having an awakening to numbers, a homeless man came up and he started trying to tell me a story about how everything was mathematical. And I was still kind of in my Christian mindsets, at this point. And he started telling me this stuff about numbers and this and that. And now numbers speak to me so clearly. And I literally at that moment thought he was crazy, but I think he might have been an angel for sure. But my point with the streets is that it's so crazy what it teaches you.
Yeah.
Living, in the back seat of a car or on a park bench. I slept on park benches, or you have to walk 50 miles broken with holes in your shoes, or you have to go and beg. If you've never held a sign on a street corner begging for money, then I don't know if you understand the shame.
Yeah.
But it's crazy because it was also breaking my ego. It was doing,
that's the thing though. It's like, okay, what's the word? Dignity.
Yes, dignity. That's
dignity. I mean, like when you have a perception of yourself where you have no dignity, okay, and I'm not talking about like when you have no dignity, you actually learn dignity. In other words, you can say, I remember the universe told me, and I was doing, and I don't even have to go there with you because I know you've done some crazy shit. Anyone that's been down that path, you do think your demons come in.
Yeah.
When you're at that level, and I would say meth and heroin, definitely coke for a lot of people, not for me, but anyway, it takes you to this dark, 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 dark place. And that dark, dark, dark place is you, right? It ain't the world, it's you.
Right.
And it's both a gift, it's a blessing, and it's a fucking burden. But what I was going to say is that like you get to a point, because I remember the universe told me, Todd, stop thinking about what you did last night. Stop thinking about what's happened. Stop thinking about no car, no money, no job, no kids, no nothing, right? And understand that the entire world is going to know every single thing you've ever done in your life. Now I'm on the streets and I'm in a park at the time, right? I think it was actually a lot like what you're talking about. And I just went, oh, holy shit. And then I got it. And what I got was that if that was true, it was true for everyone. And then I was like relieved. And I went, wait a minute. So we're all in the same boat. Yeah. And if you think about it, whether it's pain, love, suffering, whatever it is, my pain is the same as yours. It's just in proportion to our life experience. Yeah. So on the surface, it might look like something's totally different, but here we go with the comparisons and the martyrdom and the victim consciousness.
Yeah.
You know, but the truth is my love is the same. My experience is the same. And you and I, brother, and everyone here is a valiant soul that showed up here to represent the universe and expand again. Right.
It's so good. I mean, God, you just touched on so many things as you're speaking. I'm just being like, you're literally giving me downloads as you speak, bro. Yeah, you know, it's crazy because I'm going to share this. So when I was in the midst of using meth, specifically at the end, I was having I was having spiritual experiences, but they were very dark, very dark. I felt surrounded by darkness. I saw darkness. Everything was dark. Then something in me shifted and I began to invite love into my use. And I'm not promoting use. Listen, meth, heroin, coke, all that stuff is not good for you, plain and simple. But I was stuck in something and I started to invite love into my experience. I started to allow even my mindset of my own, of me, to change. And I began even in my youth to have different, if you want to call them delusions, whatever they are, right? But they began to they were more light. They were more, it was different. It was more angelic. It was more because I was inviting love into the darkness.
Right.
And what's crazy is that it was literally a shift about myself. And what I realized was, and I was fighting against, I was warring against so many things, but what I was warring against was all of the trauma and pain within myself.
Yeah.
I'm being molested when I was a kid and this and that, wanting to save, bring justice to every pedophile in the world was really ultimately about me healing.
Right.
The energetic bond wound to that energy, or whatever it was. And the more I get the reality of that, it's all within, and it's all about healing, but it's also about what do we tell ourselves. This is my big thing. I tell people, what do you tell yourself about yourself?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What do you tell yourself about yourself? And that is what will facilitate what we create in the visual world.
Yeah. It's true. Okay. So for instance, when I started walking the street, a few, it's, 3, 4, 5 months, whatever, I'm into this thing. And I would meet people and I would say, hey, I'm Todd Medina. I used to be a national director at Home Depot. Right.
Right. That was your identity, right?
That was, I would say that to people. Right. And so one day, it's so funny how somebody can tell you something, or you can be unconscious, right? I was unconscious of it. So one day, as I'm having my daily, all day long, never ending communication with the universe, I hear, why are you doing that? Why are you saying that? And dude, it was like the first of, since then, probably 5 major splits, what I would call a split. So in that moment, I split. So there was this human being, man, this good man with a beautiful heart who was in this effed up situation. Right. And then there was this voice that I'd always heard. I thought it was God. And I guess it is in a way, but it's me. right? Call it higher self, whatever. And from that point on, the next thing you know, it's like I had my ear up to the vocal box of the human, and I was listening to everything that he was saying and the resonance and the tonality, because I can say to you, hey, brother, I'm home. Or I can say, I'm home. You can say the same thing and it can mean something else, right? So I started to notice all these nuances, and I started extracting things from my communications. But I got to tell you, it's still a process today.
Yeah.
Like I still hear myself today. Back then, I thought I was like, I'm almost there, but you're not. It just keeps going if you're really, yeah.
We just keep shedding the layer. And going back to what I said earlier, it's really ultimately for me, because of the chaos that I've experienced, and and just for the audience, chaos. I'm talking about chaos. I mean, brokenness to the core, suicidal. Listen, so I just want anyone that may be watching, listen, there is hope.
Yeah.
There is light. There is hope, and there is light at the end of the tunnel. It's really about holding on and believing, because I've been to the bottom. I mean, and I created a message not too long ago where I was crying in my bed. Why me?
Yeah, exactly.
Why me? Because I could be the 10,000 that haven't made it this year, right? And what I come back to is, okay, it is me. So now let me speak. Let me share. And so there is hope. And I felt led to just say that depression, anxiety, addiction, there is hope. But that chaos, that chaos was ultimately what I created, within me. And it wasn't because I was a bad person. No. It was because I was broken. Right?
That's the thing, man. That's the whole thing. That's what I was trying to say earlier about the guy from the rich neighborhood in Houston. I mean, the level of self-loathing is no different when you're on the streets and you have nothing. Then it's actually better than when you're in the matrix, 9 to 5, the hamster on the wheel, holding all these labels up, right?
Yeah.
Because you're not as conscious of it, and there's so many different escapes. If I have money and I have a car and I have a whatever, I have access to all these things that I can escape from myself.
Yeah.
In the matrix, with being a respectable, reputable person who falls in line with everyone else, right? You can find it sex, money, rock and roll, whatever the case is, right? But when you're on the streets, you don't have a lot of choices. So I think what actually happens, from my perspective, nothing really changed except for one thing. I had no strings on me anymore. Right. After my whole life carrying the load, the only thing I had on my shoulders now was me. And like you, I had a hole in my heart. I was crying half the day, walking down the road crying. So I think what it is it actually puts you in a space where you can hear yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can start to have that brutal honesty of the soul type of dialogue, because that's what it is.
And it's wild too, because like you said earlier, you start having these, as we start to awaken, we start having these like floods of downloads that are going into our system, especially when we have like an energetic Kundalini type awakening, or like I said, baptism of the Holy Spirit, whatever we want to call it, right? Whatever we want to label it. But once we start having that, our body is receiving all that divine healing and stuff like that. And it's like, it takes years upon years upon years to integrate that. to understand that, to and so what I've learned is that most of my life I was an instant gratification person. I was a sprinter. I was literally a sprinter. I was very fast and I was an athlete. So I was used to, now. And what I've had to realize is that it's an eternal journey.
Absolutely.
It's an eternal process, and learning to be grateful for what I have and who I am today is my daily practice. And I don't have, I'm not like, whatever I'm creating, I'm not there, but I am there, right? Because I have everything I need today to live and to breathe. And so, I'm grateful for that, because there's a lot of people that don't. There's people that are going to die of starvation today. And that's a whole nother conversation.
That's such a good point. That's such a great point. I want to make sure that we restate this. Okay. So when you're in the matrix, or just when you're in a traditional space, and you have a house, you have a house and you have food in the house, right? And the lights are on and whether you have a car or not or whatever. Okay. So there's a whole lot of stuff to think about, like the bills to pay, the kids, this, or, so there's all this stuff. Now, when you're in that other situation, literally, I would wake up every day and I'd say, where am I going to get something to eat? Is there a place? I keep my eyes open for a place I can earn a few bucks. Okay. Cash, raking leaves or whatever comes my way. And where am I going to sleep tonight?
Right.
So when you start to think about those things, again, burdens are blessings and blessings are burdens. How can you have that type of acute focus and awareness and the opportunity to expand the potential of your essence as a being, and your communion with God, with Source? How can you do that when you're in the middle of it with all these irons in the fire? I mean, you can, and people are doing it. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just trying to paint the picture that you were experiencing, because I know what you're talking about. But yeah, it's a gift. It was a gift, right?
It's our blessing and our curse, right?
Yeah.
And you and I are truly blessed that we're here having this conversation, because there's many of us, if you will, that maybe didn't make it, right? And so it's such because ultimately being homeless and being in prison and all of my addiction is what got me to who I am today.
Yeah.
And just what you said is true. It's like everything's taken from me, if you will.
Yeah.
So it formed me within.
Yeah.
Some people it's your time to awaken, and either you're going to choose it, or you're going to be forced.
Yeah.
Because the desire within you is creating it.
That's right. That's right. That's exactly right. And the energies now are supporting us in a way they never have.
Yes.
It has got to have something to do with the internal expansion people have had as it comprises the collective field. But, yeah, that's the cold, hard truth, what you said. I mean, it's like my friend said to us a few months ago. We were in Sedona, and she said something to the effect. She's Sandra Walter. She's a very well known in these circles, and she said, yeah, the energies are they're just ramping up, and our higher selves are talking to us, and if you don't listen, it's going to embarrass the hell out of you. Yeah. And that's what you're talking about, like we were talking about the dignity, the humiliation. That's a big one, right?
Let me share a little story with you on that. So when I was in prison the last time, I was arrested and violated was June of 2015. And they took my mug shot, and it was a public picture. And so the town that I grew up in and the people I grew up with, people that were lifelong brothers, they thought it was funny because I think one of them was a cop. So they found out about it, whatever, right? So they decided to pass the picture around amongst each other. I was the joke.
That's horrible.
I was the joke, you know, because the picture, if you see it, it was not pleasant. So now, so you talk about humiliation. So that's where I was when I got out of prison. I was humiliated.
Yeah.
I felt humiliated. But now I know who I am and I know where I've been and I know what I've gone through. And now I use that picture on almost all of my posts that talk about my addiction. And I share it and I show it with me now. And now it's a message of hope. I love the scripture that says what the enemy meant for evil. And I'm not calling these people my enemy at all. I love some of them like brothers still. But what was made to make fun of me, mock me, and humiliate me is now my message.
Right.
Right? It's now my message. My mess is now my message. And but the humiliation was what was the hardest thing to get over. So when I got out of prison the first time, I had all the hope in the world to change everything. But when I got out of prison, I had nothing. I was now a federal felon. I still was struggling with depression because they don't teach you how to overcome depression in prison. You know,
but they give you pills for it.
That's a whole nother conversation.
Isn't that something?
They'll give you.
I'm sorry. I know. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. So I got out and, you know, I struggled with depression. So I started using right away.
Yeah.
I violated. I went back to prison. Recidivism in this country is 75% for these reasons. I got out again. I told my federal parole officer, I said, listen, I am struggling. I'm going to use, I need your help. His words were, it's not in the budget. I can't help you, or it's going to take too long, this and that. Well, I wound up going on the run. And my point being is that overcoming the humiliation, overcoming the hopelessness of ever having a life again, overcoming, you know, what I did to my children and the pain that I caused people, you know, all of that is real shit. Like, this is stuff that overcoming relapse. Yeah. And just
overcoming, you know, the deep, dark sins that in the dark, grimy places that you end up in and situations that you end up in. The self-torture, the self-deprecation, you know, I don't know. Is it a situation? I've never really thought about it, where you said it earlier, everything was taken away. Everything is stripped from you. And you think, oh, money, house, no. Your dignity, you're humiliated, your credibility. Even, this is the crazy thing, even when somebody associates, I had people say things about me, family, that weren't true. But here was the problem. Because of the track record, if I said, hey, I didn't do that, they're like, yeah, they didn't believe me anyway.
Yeah, sure.
So you get to this point where, like I said about the universe, they said everything, they're going to know everything you've ever done. And there's some that's kind of scary when you think about it, because we've all done things. I don't care who you are, that you wouldn't want people to know. But the cool thing about it is it was also the most liberating point in my life, because at that point, what's there to lose? Like what can you do to me? It didn't kill me. So like, where am I at? Where am I going? So
yeah, sorry.
I don't know. It's not a path, as you said before, it's not a path that you would recommend to people, but
no.
By God, I'm like you, what you said earlier. Sometimes I look at carefully, you know, I look at the path I took and I think, damn, that shit was real. She did all right, you know? But
we made it.
Again, yeah.
We made it, you know? Yeah. We made it. You know, it's interesting you say that, because that's why I've thought about, and I still think about it, about running for politics. Yeah. Because listen, everything I've done is out.
That's right. That's perfect. That's perfect.
I'm like Eminem. I don't know if you know who Eminem is. He was a rapper.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I love it. One of his songs, he's like, listen, here it is. I did this. I did that. I did this. I am this. I am that. And guess what? Now you know it. Now you can't say shit.
That's right.
But no, coming to Jesus meaning, right? Coming to Jesus. And look, there's still things in my life, that I wish maybe I would have made a different choice. Now I'm just, we're always going to make, but my choices now don't hurt other people, don't harm myself, don't, it's maybe I shouldn't have eaten that, or, whatever it is, but it's, I'm blessed.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's such a complicated thing, because I know, like I used, quite a few things with the purpose of expansion. So LSD, mushrooms, ayahuasca, and even MDMA. I purposely went on solo journeys to explore, but there's two sides to that, right? I mean, you can connect, but you can also find yourself in deep shit. I found now that, this has been a while, but I don't need that anymore. Like there's experiences that are accessible to us without any help at all.
Yeah,
and it's true. And those are the mind-blowing ones, because those are the ones where you don't go, oh man, but I was high. So did it really happen? And you have all that going on. But it's very possible, and there's a lot of people experiencing that. As I was talking about when I woke up, the messengers were biblical and familiar, more familiar than, say, if it had been Arcturians or Andromedans coming in the door saying, "Hey, what's up, pal?" Yeah. And I think that has a lot to do with the conditioning I had. This is something I could understand, and they bring in the other stuff later, right? Did you have any type of, everyone has different clairs. Did you have any type of sense? Like, I know you did because you mentioned it earlier, but like a sense, a knowing, or even visuals or audio, did you have any experiences like that?
Yeah, I've had so many,
yeah,
and it's, and to the plant medicines, I think, listen, of course we can't, I think it's an ancient sacred thing, right? It's an ancient sacred thing. And I think that it should, this is my personal opinion, if it calls to you, if the plant calls to you, whatever plant that may be, they should be used for healing and for healing, right? And I think, the profound impacts that they're proving scientifically with microdosing psilocybin.
Of course.
That, for
even MDMA.
Yeah, absolutely.
MDMA was originally prescribed for marriage counseling.
Yeah, absolutely.
In fact, when I was in rehab, we had to watch videos 90 days. We'd like 2 or 3 a day.
Yeah.
And the only 2 that were positive, and again, I'm not advocating anything because I didn't know, was marijuana and MDMA.
Yeah.
It's all a beautiful story.
It's wild. It's wild, and so it's ultimately, I've had so many visual, what big experiences that I have is like, I'll be getting a download and literally out of nowhere, an eagle will fly right into my view, or It happened to me 3 days ago. I was driving back from the ocean after doing my qigong breath work and my yoga and my meditation, and I was getting these downloads as I was driving back, and literally this eagle on the middle of the California highway, like it doesn't belong there, just swoops right over and in front of my car and right over me, wings out, and those are the type of things, and then obviously, through
you can't make that stuff up.
You can't make that stuff up.
But you can wish you can your mind can come in and go, oh, that's just a coincidence.
Right.
But then they start to add up.
Right.
Like, so as a standalone, you can go, oh, well, that's, explainable, but then they start to add up, and you put them all up on the wall together, and you're just like, holy crap.
Or you see someone that's passed, like it looks just like them, I don't know if you've ever had that happen. Like, it happened to me a few times on the streets. Like, all of a sudden I'd see almost like a spitting image of my grandfather, or someone else that has passed on, or even someone that I worked with. Like, one time I was driving and I was having this spiritual experience, and I looked in the rearview mirror, and this guy that I mentored in prison,
right,
looked like it was him. I mean, to the T. Now, it's just a sign, right? It's a way for us to be reassured. And then, never mind, in my sacred experience, as you probably can relate to, the things that I saw with my eyes closed during my sacred experiences with the plant, and the things that I've been shown through that, is just unspeakable.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. I just literally can't even. I couldn't do even plant medicine today.
Yeah.
Not because I remember when I did ayahuasca, and I remember distinctly hearing, "You don't need to do this again."
Right.
The thought of doing mushrooms, I just don't think I'd do it again. I mean,
and that's a great place to be.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying, I'm just making a statement. I'm not like trying to say anything about it. I mean, I enjoyed it,
right?
But I don't know. It's just like, I don't know. Things have changed. It's like I can't even get high.
Yeah,
I used to. Like you take a say 5 hits of this or two hits of that, whatever, and you would get a certain buzz, right? Like it doesn't do the same thing anymore.
Yeah, I think it's important too, like with specifically like the mushroom, if someone is practicing, it should be like maybe once a year, if that, once every few years, and again, I'm not promoting that. I'm not, I understand that you got to check with your doctor, and, you got to check with your own state laws.
I mean, I know people that do it weekly.
Yeah, I don't.
Hey, whatever works for you. But
right.
I'm just saying that, I think maybe when you go deep and hard and you come out of it, I never have considered myself like a recovering addict. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I just handled it a different way, I guess. But yeah, there's so many different ways to get there.
Right.
And that's for some people, that's a very viable route. Evidently, I could go on forever with you.
I could.
But evidently, I forgot. I've just been informed that we have a show I'm supposed to produce in 30 seconds. So that show is going to be about 15 minutes late. That's going to be Real Talk with Melissa Dehan. And she has a guest by the name of, I don't know what it is. Melissa Dehan and her guest will be on in 15 minutes. Okay. We should do this again. I think that, I kind of get the sense that you are, you're already doing it. You're making videos, and you're talking about maybe running for office or something. No, seriously, I think that's fantastic. But what I'm saying is you look like part of your mission is going to be to be out there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'd love to support you. Soulogy'd love to support you in doing that. And, it was a very unconventional show for an unconventional show.
I really appreciate, man, you're just the wisdom that you carry. And, I literally, as you were speaking throughout the show, I was receiving. So I honor your spirit, your energy, who you are. And I'm glad we connected for sure. I look forward to actually really connecting and getting to know you a little bit more.
Yeah. yeah, we'll reach out to you and we'll do this again. Like I said, this is an unconventional show, and today was an unconventional show for us. So I apologize a little bit for the but this is a conversation. This is what it's all about. Caroline Kelly is Melissa's guest. Thank you, Delia. Yeah, so we'll reach out to you, and if you're open to it, we'll get together again and have another fireside chat. How about that?
Absolutely, bro. Absolutely, man. Thank you.
All right, man. You take care. And all blessings to you and your family.